Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore, where today we're going to be covering the Riveteers. Now, of course, in this particular case, the Riveteers, they have their own little story behind them. Each of the different groups have their own basic ideas and they're basically their inspiration. So the Riveteers are supposed to be the working class. So like the Teamsters kind of thing, the Jimmy Hoffa kind of Irishman deal, that kind of segment of the crime world. And so their whole idea behind the characters themselves is that they're all very like active. They want to just come down, they blitz. I mean, they're just going, they don't care what happens to them in the process. They're just going to come in, they're going to do what they need to. They're basically just, they're a union. They're a unionized mafia group. And so basically they're led by Ziatora, who's a demon dragon. And so she is basically, she embodies all of that. She's very active. She's the kind of person that just like blitz in, blow stuff up. She willingly sacrifices her guys just to increase her treasure. She has a ton of treasure. She has an entire like gold hoard kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, she's also extremely good at giving speeches. And it's that right there that actually inspires and ignites essentially her people to go and keep doing what they do. And she kind of makes it very obvious to them that without the Riveteers, the city would basically fall apart. And so you get all these different characters that exist, and oddly enough, this one has the most legends. And I'm about to go through it, but first, Riveteer's headquarters is called Tresa, or the Tresa. And it's basically just this giant warehouse lair, and that's where Ziatora lives. That's where she keeps all of her treasure. Is like in a vault deep beneath it. It's full of gold and halo, and so basically, the actual area itself is filled with toxic gas that is basically only accessible to Ziatora and the ones that like those that are like via Shino, basically. Now, as far as the legends themselves are concerned, it's a little disappointing, and it's going to be that way for a lot of these characters. A lot of the legends in this set are kind of just there and don't have a ton added on to them. An exception to that would be Jaxis or Jackis, the one that she's basically like a brawler. And I'm kind of super disappointed with this character in particular because she was supposed to get her own story. She was supposed to have one of the 5 side stories be about her. You may notice that there was no actual Riveteer-based story. What we saw instead was Kit Kanto's story incorporate a lot of those Riveteers. So Jaxis' whole deal was that she was supposed to basically fight off a bunch of maestro assassins by conjuring up copies of every person she had ever fought. And so that's really her whole deal, is that she was able to use her like fighting prowess to not only knock out all of her enemies, but once she had done so, she kind of like had them imbued within her, and she was able to recreate them and use them in that way. Now, other characters like Mr. Orfeo, or the Beamtown Bullies, or even Vazi, the keen negotiator, all of them, they're kind of just legends. They exist. We don't have really anything else about them, sadly. They are interesting, like the Beamtown Bullies is a really interesting design and like a concept, but we don't really have anything else to go off of besides that. Jolene, similarly, she only shows up in Perry's story and has no other use besides that. She doesn't get a watermark with the Riveteers since she's just a red-green card. But for some reason, Jaxis gets one, because obviously. But Jolene, she's just the plunder queen. That's all we know. There's nothing really added on to that. Hensy is the devil rogue that shows up in Kit Kanto's story. And basically, no one actually has called him Hensy besides his mom, apparently, because everybody refers to him as Toolbox. And that's because he's basically got everything. And he's technically a Riveteer, but it seems like he actually has, like, he's like his own free agent. He works with anyone that he wants to. He takes stuff from everyone, skims a little bit off the top. So he lives in Park Heights, so he has the money to be able to do that sort of thing. But that's basically his entire shtick. Moving on from that one, we just have Ziatora herself, who we already talked about, and Agnes. Agnes is the Dragon Slash. She's basically just the enforcer for our characters there. So that's Ziatora. That's Ziatora's entire group, Riveteers. One character that is not going to be mentioned anywhere else because they don't really have any story at all is Cyrix, carrier of the flame, the Phoenix, Red Black Phoenix. As cool as it is, there's nothing about it. There's no mention of this card or this character anywhere is so far from what I've been able to find story-wise. I've looked. And so Cyrix is not affiliated with any group, but since red-black, it's not Maestro's most likely. It's not like a piece of art. It's not an assassin. So it's safe to say that Cyrix is most likely a Riveteer-based entity. Maybe it lives in the Chaldea, flies all over the place because it is still really high up in the air, even if it's the bottom of the city. So that's pretty much all we have for this particular group. They are basically all in the Chaldea. That's where the majority of them hang out. And like I said, Zeatora, she actually hangs out down there too. She prefers it over everything else. But as far as the actual legends go, those are the legends for the Riveteers. Next time around, we're going to go ahead and we'll go on to the Obscura and see how that goes. Until then, travel well.